Hey everybody, I'm Kelly Albrecht. I'm here with Last Call Media, full service agency. We do a lot of figuring out for clients how might we solve their problems, and then building those solutions, producing those solutions, implementing them, delivering them back to the client and their customers. Today's talk is about a topic that we've really been focusing on lately as part of our product development and our methodology for getting to the right thing sooner for our clients. So this is a little bit about why we're thinking this way, and how you can go about thinking this way, and how you can go about implementing this or approaching producing your products in these ways. And then some examples of where we're doing this, and where we've done some form of it. So it's called Getting Closer to Your Customer Using Drupal in the Last Mile. And first, let's consider how close are you to your customers right now, right? I gave this talk in Nashville, and somebody in the audience said 100 yards, because one of their customers was down the street from the convention center. So, haha, that's funny. But you can think about, are you the one doing customer service? Are you the one that communicates with the customer and gets their feedback on things? Are you the project manager, maybe working directly with the customer? Or are you a developer, put in the line of fire of an upset customer, or shielded from the customer completely, just kind of working on things in a bubble, not really knowing how the product is received at the end? A small business can get pretty close to their customers pretty easily, because oftentimes if you're in a small business, your customers may walk in the door and tell you what they want, and may come in and check, and you can get pretty close pretty easily. But a question that comes up is getting closer to your customers at scale. If you're as part of a large organization or a very big organization, there's a tendency to sort of push the customer out, because in a lot of ways they can be considered an interruption to getting what it is done for them that you want to do. So let's start with why. Why would you want to get closer to your customer? Why would you want to think about shifting the way you do work and shifting the way you think about what you're producing, to have a more intimate relationship with the customer while you're producing that thing for them? So I would say that if you're making something for the customer, you want to be making it with the customer. I think excellent in the keynote this morning, products made for a user, that user may not even exist. But if you're making your product with the customer, it's going to be much more relevant to them and have a higher chance of success. So that's why you'd want to get really close to your customer. So how can we think about doing that? It may be that we're not very close to them right now. We may not have good feedback loops set up on our product. But it turns out that really there are methodologies out there that we can think about, and if thought about the right way, we can bring into what we're doing. Agile methods have gotten us most of the way there, thinking about doing smaller pieces of the work and getting feedback sooner and adjusting course as you go. Something that I think really gets us much further of the way there, and is a largely misunderstood concept, is the concept of DevOps. So there's a lot of misconceptions about what DevOps is. This was originally in the DevOps track, and I think due to a misconception with what DevOps is, it was moved out of the DevOps track. Most of the time people think of DevOps as the stuff with the servers or the automation. And it's a lot more than that. That's a fairly narrow way to think about DevOps. DevOps began, I think, over a decade ago now, when people started to realize that the development team, and the operations team weren't really communicating as they were trying to get a product out to the customer, and this led to a lot of finger pointing, a lot of misunderstandings, a lot of stuff getting developed but then rewritten and put into operation and then delivered to the customer and failing. So the idea of DevOps is to get the development team and the operations team as close together as possible. So it's really about shortening that feedback loop, streamlining that value chain, and on that value chain, at some point toward the toward the end of that value chain, is the customer. But it was initially really about breaking down this wall of confusion between the dev team and the ops team. Okay, so DevOps is typically thought of as frequent, rapid release cycles, automated deployment, automated rollback, continuous integration with automated testing. The other DevOps talks here are all about that. Automating everything where possible, especially. And feedback, but particularly feedback about your system from monitoring. Like, is the server down? I want to find out if the server or the service is down before the customer does, so I can fix it before they find out about it. That's a pretty narrow version of what DevOps is, and that's the version that we are mostly intimate with through the talks that we go to. It even goes so far in that version of our understanding of DevOps where you want to automate everything where possible, to the point where you might even automate the operations team, the team that is even closer to the customer than the development team. And I think this is, I just want to touch on this quickly because it is a thing that's gaining traction, and there is a hashtag NoOps on Twitter if you want to check out what people are thinking. I think Platform SH gives a talk called NoOps is now or something. I think this is a short-sighted misunderstanding of the DevOps mindset, because there's much more to the rest of the value chain, right? It's not. It doesn't just go into operation. That's the end of it. The whole point is to produce something for a customer, deliver it to that customer, and have it be the right thing for that customer. And what is NoOps going to do? Is it going to just automate the customer too? There's much more to it. So really what you want to do in a DevOps mindset is think about how to bring everyone in this loop of production as close together as possible, so that we're developing our product with each other in an effective and efficient way. So you want the developers, testers, and operation engineers working together in a DevOps mindset. You want them to have a common business-oriented goals to cover the whole value chain. You need the team, the largest idea of the team possible, to have the authority to make the changes it needs to make. And you need the feedback mechanisms in place to ensure continuous assessment and continuous improvement of the product that you are developing for the customer. And this, in a sense, is what gets you closer to the customer and shortening the feedback loop. And so it needs to be even closer than what we see on the screen here, where it's not just a handoff over the wall to the customer, and then the feedback kind of streams in like a game of telephone. We want a DevOps mindset has you thinking about this in a way where you want to improve this. So we need the ops people, and we need to improve this. And it ends up being more like a continuous feedback loop. You've probably seen images that talk about this, the different images than this. But basically this is thinking about we're building something, and we're using continuous integration and automation and testing and deployment scripts to streamline this rapid development, rapid release to the customer. But there's this whole other half where once it's deployed and in operation, and there's opportunities for getting feedback that should inform what we plan next, so that we stay on the right track and develop and fix issues and develop new features, and the loop just goes on and on. Another way to think about this is to use the manager-maker schedule, which is a popular, from years ago now, Paul Graham blog post, which helps us think about balancing the focus of the people making the product and the skill set of people that are basically insulating that and protecting that focus, but also keeping track of the other half of the feedback loop and optimizing, knowing what the right next thing or the next change is to do. So there are three things necessary to identify DevOps, and that is flow, feedback, and learning. We're really good at the flow part. I think we've got lots of great tools to deliver things quickly. But we end up kind of with sometimes, I think, like a feature fire hose, just blasting on our customers, right? And the feedback tends to come in the form of tickets, right? So I asked a DevOps person one time, what about the feedback part of what you're talking about? And they said, oh, well, when stuff breaks, people create tickets. That's just kind of, they'll create a ticket, you know? But I think this mindset needs to be broader and wider, and if we take a wider approach to this, it'll be much more beneficial to our product, where we want to apply the ideas of flow and automation and streamlining to our informing of the customer of what we're developing and our seeking feedback on if it's the right thing, and to streamline and automate that flow of information back into the development, the DevOps loop, so to speak. So this is a little bit small, but kind of what I said quickly just a second ago. Whenever we deploy something, this is an opportunity to inform our customers what is new, what's great about it. How is it a fix of a previous issue that they reported, right? So we want them giving us feedback, and we want them to know that their feedback matters and it's not just a waste of time, so that they will give more feedback. And we want to let them know when it goes into operation, we want to give them contextual information about what it is we've developed for them, so that they're using it appropriately and they're less likely to stumble on user error and lose trust in our product, and they're more likely to give good feedback. And as we're getting good feedback and asking how it is, we can look at where can we put in our product really simple, easy ways to get feedback from the people that are operating our product on, is this the right thing? What could be what good new things could we add to this? And how important are these new things? Which new thing is more important than another new thing? And that's what we take into planning with us. So if we're using like a task tracker or something, finding ways to streamline and automate the collection of that feedback into, say, Jira or something, that then a product owner can then work with the team to build it next and integrate it and deploy it. So here's where we're at, right? That was just kind of a long intro, setting the stage for how we can think about getting closer to a customer. And we're here for Drupal. So in most of the cases, in what we're doing, Drupal is the product that we're planning, that we're building, that we're deploying, and that our customers are operating. It goes into operation and it's being used by our customers. And it may be that our customers have customers. And if our customers are able to better use the product, they're able to use the product to produce better things for their customers to take advantage of. So we've got Drupal as part of this. And so when this talk is talking about using Drupal in the last mile, this is thinking about Drupal as the closest thing between us, the people who are developing a product, and our customers, the people who are operating the product. So I'm going to touch briefly on thinking about Drupal and communicating what's new with what we've built in Drupal to our customers, what is with our product and how our customers can use it as we're developing it, getting feedback. Not so much going to touch on that, but that is in there, and not so much on what's next. But just really, this is not a prescriptive way to do this. This is the more important thing is to start thinking about this, and you may even have better ideas than I'm presenting, but to really start thinking about, and this is something that Drupal has not historically done very well. This is something that I think WordPress, for example, has done really well. You can imagine, you've probably heard similar scenarios where somebody just really trusts their WordPress install, and maybe they have to use Drupal on a project and they just don't like it because they're using, you know, something that got through the acceptance criteria on the surface to the stakeholders, but then it went into production and had to get used by actual people, and those actual people are now living with the bugs and the funkiness and they don't understand the content type that they're supposed to use, so they just put everything in a basic page and it doesn't show up in the other places that it's supposed to show up, and they lose trust and they lose faith in Drupal. And if anyone asks them, do they like Drupal, they're going to say, no, this thing sucks, and you know what, I use at home, WordPress, and it's awesome. And so I think that one of the main reasons behind that is because WordPress as a community thinks about their customers and what their customers are using and liking and going to like, and what that authoring experience is going to be like. Okay, so I think use cases for what I'm going to talk about would be like, one of the actual examples in here is from a government organization, and so they're developing Drupal as a product, and they have authors in different state departments who are having to use Drupal as the product. Like, this is how you communicate with your constituents, and they're using this mindset. We worked with them, and I'm going to show you some things we implemented that were pretty good. But any nonprofit or EDU where, you know, the department is just given this Drupal site that's like, hey, here's how to communicate with your students and prospective students, go at it. This is something that we want to really be like a cool product that our customers, our users, enjoy using. Okay. All right, so communicating what's new and fixed with each delivery. Here's how Drupal does this now. You log in, and this is what it looked like. I just set up a Drupal 8 site, and I logged in. I think we can do better than that. What if you logged into Drupal? And actually, so I've given this talk a few times, and in the time that I started giving this talk, this topic is like springing up from different people in the community. I think there was a blog post from Dries that is actually talking about this kind of thing. And there's also a separate initiative on making the help text better. So there's a lot of kind of parallel strains going along, so you might be familiar with one of those. But you could log into Drupal, and I don't think it would be too much to have, say, release notes on what's new, right? And, you know, maybe, and what's down here at the bottom here for frequently used content, this is leveraging ideas that we're going to touch on in the next few slides, right? Here's some content that you post normally. Maybe you want to just create one of these pieces of content. And the release notes, this could be coming from core and contrib updates that you've made. Maybe it's pulling from that automatically. Or it wouldn't be too far off to whenever we update one of our features or whenever we update one of our custom modules to update the release notes in code there, and it wouldn't be too hard. You know, maybe you're in this room and maybe you're the developer, but maybe you're the person who advocates for a better product. So I think either one of those roles is in a good position to advocate for this not being a crazy idea, to maybe pull in the release notes from our custom modules or even our features. But this is a nice way to say, hey, we're listening to you, customer. We're developing new stuff, and it really gives us a platform to really explain, you know, or show how we're valuing the relationship. And we're we need to show that through our product, because that's what's at the central point of the relationship. And so in this example right here, we've got, for example, new content type added. Take a tour. Tour is in Drupal 8 core and an extremely rarely known, underutilized feature of Drupal 8. I think it's seen as a very superfluous thing to the Drupal experience. But it could be pretty valuable. So let's say that new content type added, take a tour. This can link to a route in Drupal that has a tour configured for it and start the tour automatically. This is in Drupal core already. Just !tour at the end of the URL, and it will trigger the first tour tip to pop up. So here we said, hey, new content type, take the tour. We get right into the tour. Here's what's new with this content type. Here's some stuff, and let's take the tour. And people can learn about what's new that you've developed for them. You're communicating directly to them. You're helping them understand their product better. You can use the tour for another tip. The way tour works is it targets CSS ID or class selectors, and you can configure some content. You can put HTML in there. You could have images. You could have a GIF showing somebody, dragging something or pointing to something. You could have a link to general page help about this whole feature, not necessarily about the thing you're pointing at. I think a best practice for tour would be to limit it to pointing to a location on the page, as if you were standing behind the person saying, over here on the, let me see. Oh, never mind. I thought I had one that went on the right side. Over here on the right side are URL path settings. We turned this on recently so that you can adjust your own paths, because we had a tremendous amount of feedback that we wanted to be able to edit our paths, that kind of thing. To continue on, you could ask for feedback at this point. But in this example, I have it saying, well, here's a tip on this field. Let's read the page help. And you can use this HTML to direct them to some page help that you've developed. And that's going to be the important thing of explaining to our customers, what is this thing you're using, with contextual guides and resources on site features. So this would be an example of basic page help. And my idea here, this is something that we're working on at Last Call Media, is to basically automate this, to have this information pulling from the content type description and from the field help text, so that it puts the help and the customer communication at the micro feature level right on each field, so that as you're developing each new feature, if it impacts a field or a content type, you can make that help text part of your acceptance criteria. So if you're a product owner and you know about a new feature that you're developing, you can start to think about, how are we going to communicate this to our customer? And I'm going to make that communication part of the actual feature development. And if you can put that feature, that communication into each feature, if it's a new content type, into the content type description, if there are new fields, into a longer form field help text, then we could generate these help pages and just pull from that information, and it would auto update anytime that you add to that feature and update that help information. So let's see, this would be an example of here's the short description, here's what we currently have. So let's say that this is the short this is talking about the short description field, and it's got a little bit of help text. This is what we currently have now. I think for this idea the idea that we're working on makes it so that you can have longer form content attached to each field. So you probably don't want to talk too much about a short description, but this is just an example of that would potentially be useful for much more complicated fields that you could provide. You could even provide some content strategy in here on how would you produce better content with this field, and this would all feed into this page here, right there. Let's see. So let's say that you edited this help page, right? So let's take this idea further. How are we going to get that help information onto this page? The idea that we're working on right now has it so that if we edited this help page, it's a piece of content, and we relate it to a content type, and since it knows what's attached on that content type, it can, well, obviously it'll pull the title from the help page, and it would pull the subtitle from the help page fields, but then from the content type, it pulls out all this extra information and puts it here. But really what we're doing by making this the help page more informational is we can build out better help that can actually be used in other places across all of Drupal. So this is just an idea that springs from like, how can we communicate our work better to our customers and have a better relationship with our customers, knowing what they're using and how to better use it. So here's an example of coming from the same bit of information, we can streamline and or automate some key components coming down here. So this would be like an alternative view of this help page, but it's getting all of this information. This could be an image of what the page looks like. And this information can pull from the content type that is automatically fed to from in the development build pipeline. And all this stuff can automate as it gets changed in development. And so it knows what content type it is, so you can have a button to create the page. It can know if it has a tour. These fields, I think, this would just view the help article itself. This would need to be another field. But this is just kind of an idea of how can you drive this kind of product interface for your customer. And actually have an example of where this goes. Where could that go? Well, here's a page that's kind of hard to look at out of the box for Drupal. Add content. Here's a list of stuff. We could use this thing over here on the left. We could have just a view of them. So imagine you go to add content and you have your content types with all this helpful information. Take a tour. Well, there isn't a tour for this one in the middle, so we can't take a tour there, but for all of these we can get more help. We can see what the key components are. Just continuing on with this idea that we've been working on, if this is content, you can know like how often somebody has created that content, or you can group it together. You could tag it with taxonomy. You could search it. This could just actually be a grid view on this idea. So a nice interface, much more informational, much more reliable. I think I just said all that stuff. So here's another example on Drupal, out of the box Drupal site that's kind of yucky. I've seen versions of this page with more information, but this was the one that came out of the box for me. I don't know who is using, well, so basically the help system in Drupal right now is really helping, I don't know, I think it's really helping the developer put help information into the system. I don't know if it's really helping anybody who needs help. But if we have a more robust way of helping our customers, our users of Drupal, with the features that we're building for them, we could have a help page that looks more like this. So if our help pages are content, we can have them categorized by topic. This could be like a panel or a custom page together. You could show the tours. Since we're getting feedback on our help pages in this idea, recommended help could be ones that are flagged as very useful. If our help is content, we can use the powers of Drupal to flag it as, or bookmark it, so to speak, and that could show up in here for our user. It will be searchable. That's a current challenge with help in Drupal right now. It's not really searchable. I don't really know who would search for the help that comes with Drupal right now either. But this is this kind of thinking, what you end up with this kind of thinking as you're building a product where every feature you're thinking, how am I going to teach my users about this product so that they use it better, so that I can get good feedback from them on if it's great and what good next thing can I do. Of course, you want to get feedback on the usefulness of our guidance. That kind of relates. So I guess this is kind of the business development part of this, although I don't like to think of it that way. But if your product is the central point between you and your customer, it's that point of relationship, then the better it is at facilitating that relationship. Your software product is a living thing. It's not just a static delivery to the customer. It's living. It's going to continuously improve. It's going to need to change as the market changes, and you'll want it to be a central figure in collecting feature requests and bug reports, so that you can continuously improve your product. And as a development team or an agency, that ties you right into the value stream of your customer, right into if this is a product that they're using to make money, for them to make money, they'll need you to continuously improve it. So that's from a business development standpoint, that's a pretty good spot to be in. So what I have next for the rest of the time is some screenshots of where we've implemented, I feel like, a start of this thinking for mass.gov. So they're on their journey of getting closer to their customers very, very happily. So here is what is implemented now for release notes. They communicate with their customer, and you can see these are Jira ticket IDs. They actually let their customers know the Jira ticket numbers so they can watch them. And here's some feedback. Tell us what you think. So this is part of communicating with the customer what's new. Telling us what's wrong with the product or what could be better with the product is not a waste of time, because we're going to actually make it better and release it to you reliably. They release things every Tuesday and Thursday, so that's really important, really, to build that relationship with your customer and be making the product better with them and have them feel that way about it, that they can trust that you're going to do something valuable with the feedback that they give. And here's an example of the tour implemented on mass.gov. What is this new content type that you've made? You can learn this links to a help page specifically about the service details content type, or you can go next. And so this is the tour module. We customized it a little bit, but I think those customizations are going to eventually make it into the module itself. But it's not hard to work with at all. It's kind of a not really done feature in Drupal 8, I think. I think it was kind of like, maybe it didn't get the groundswell that it deserves, but it's pretty cool, pretty easy to work with. So here's one where talking about the short title and description is up there. And hey, look over here on the right side. Here's a special new feature of that might not make sense just by opening it up and looking at it. And here's another link to a full help article on this feature and what it all means. And at the end, was this tour helpful? Take 1 minute to tell us what you think. So I think I come across this stuff a lot more and more as time goes on. I think this is really, people are really thinking more about their products this way. And if I feel like my feedback is going to make a difference, I will give it. I've gotten, I think earlier in my life, I would ignore stuff like this. But as for some of the products, I think they do a really good job of implementing new things, and you get a sense that they do listen to you as a customer. It increases the likelihood that you're going to give feedback. And the customers who are in the trenches with your product are the best source of information on what's going well with it and what needs to change. And here is just a look at the content type in this example. They have a content type called service details. And here is some contextual help text that shows up that doesn't need to be, in a tour tip. But they have more to say about it, so they're linking to a full page on how to best create service details in the most effective way. And they have by making this a thing for their customers to do, for their state department authors to do, they're able to communicate improvements that they're learning by tracking which pages perform better than others. So it gives a standardized way to communicate that information. And their authors know this, and their authors know that those tips and tricks are going to be in here. And then at the bottom of the page, another request for feedback. So really, I think this is like an early iteration of what this would be, but really constantly seeking to like, hey, how's it going? You know, we're making this thing for you. We're developing this product with you. We want this to be relevant to you. If there are any mistakes, we want to fix them quickly. If there are things that could be better that would avoid mistakes, we want to know that, because we value this relationship. We prioritize this relationship, and this builds a lot of trust, creates happier customers who will see your product as reliable. Here's an example of the add content page. So they went with a horizontal layout versus, in my example, it was a kind of a vertical one, but they have the start of some of that stuff. Here's the image, here's the add this content. This filter right here, you can start typing, you know, and it'll start bringing up anything with that in the title or description. So it's just very nice, usable, really good thing to do for your authors, and what you get out of this is better feedback and a better product. And it's really about building a culture of closeness and open collaboration, truly thinking about building products with customers rather than for customers that may or may not either exist or want what you're building. And this is possible because developing software products is complex yet flexible. This means the closer the operators of the product are to the developers, the shorter the feedback loops can be, and the better the product will become. If we know this, and if we account for this and act accordingly. So when change is easy, because you might have the code right up there on your screen when you get that critical piece of feedback, and you can change that code. When things are easy to change later, awareness of a better way fuels improvement, because if you became aware of a better way to do something, why wouldn't you just change right away? And that's really something that's at the heart of any agile methodology done correctly. And regarding feedback, we need everyone's perspective to make our product as intuitive as possible. You're not just going to guess right on how to be innovative. You're not just going to guess right on how to be innovative in a vacuum. You need to try things, and you need to experiment with things and get feedback, and maybe you fail a few times. And if you keep those failures inexpensive and cheap, eventually you're going to hit the nail on the head, and then you can double down on that. And what that takes everyone involved, especially your customers, done in an appropriate and empathetic way. You can really accelerate the quality of your product as you're building it. So, I would say start your courageous journey of openness and collaboration to share in a focus on your commitments to continuously improving your product. If you do this, your customers, they'll get closer to you. Thank you. All right.
Do you have a copy of the slide deck?
Yes, do we post them to the sessions? To this?
I think we can, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, Twitter. Oh yeah. I need some. I'm really like low on my followers. I don't know. K.S. Albrecht. Yeah. K.S. Albrecht on Twitter. I'll tweet them out. I gave this talk in Florida, and so there's a much different version of this talk online, but the same title. So you can actually watch an older version of this talk. And I think the slides that are much closer to this are attached to the DrupalCon Nashville talk that I gave. But even that one was different. It's different every time. The one in Nashville is 25 minutes. And this one's 45, which I think we still have 3 minutes left. So I don't know if you want me to go back to anything, or if you have any questions about how we did anything. Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess from what little I know, the mass.gov project is a fairly large project, a fairly large group of customer base that they're interacting with.
Huge. Yeah.
Is there like a minimum for some of this would be useful, or do you think even if you're building something for like a one-person nonprofit, this would still be worthwhile?
Well, so I think that's what we're thinking where, well, right, it's the kind of thing where I think it would be valuable no matter what, even if it's one person, but then it's like, well, do we want to spend all this effort for one person? Because if they're, yeah, so actually, more to your point, I think like if it's a 10-person group and you can just like handhold them more, then maybe it's not, so needed. So you're asking like what might a threshold be? Well, I think any threshold that where like if something's getting big enough where there's going to be like overturn of employees that is just going to like be too much work for you to handle. So one thing that happens is like we see it all the time. These huge sites get built for education institutions, and they'll even have you build training into the whole thing. So you build the thing. There wasn't enough budget for any of this helpful product stuff, but there was budget for training. So then you go and you train all the people who need to use it, and then within a year or 2 years, half of them are gone. And the new people come in, and they don't get any training, and they're like using this thing that has the typical Drupal backend where it works and looks good on the front end, but you need to know kind of like, all right, if I want this to show up there, I need to put it over here, kind of stuff. So very much in line with the DevOps mindset, if you're building a system that makes adding help information easy, you're basically almost automating that training and that onboarding by making it a part of the product. So I think a lot of the Drupal sites we build now, they don't have any help information. They have the stuff that you can attach, that developers can attach to modules, but that's not useful at all to the people using what you've built with that. But yeah, so I think there is an opportunity to streamline that and build that in, and something that we're working on it as kind of a special project. I think a lot of agencies do this where there's some downtime. If you're ever between clients, you might have a project you're working on. So one of the things that we're working on would be, it would probably get released as either a set of features and also as part of a distribution where you could turn it on and then automatically all of your help information would feed into this help system. So that would really just be like, hey, all you need to do is fill in helpful text at the field level, and it will create this whole help system for you. So that's something that can make it more manageable for like a smaller nonprofit to build that in that way.
Yeah, just technically speaking, with the tour content, is that something that's exportable?
Yeah, it's all YAML files. Yeah, and there's a sometimes buggy Tor UI module that I think could get tuned up if more people used it. That gives you an interface for that. So it lets you configure the routes and stuff. There's some things about, I think, the Tor module that I would like to see improved on to better fit with this idea. Like right now, you have to know what route Tor needs to show up on, so it's kind of a pretty technical thing to know for most people. And we customized that to make the content type be able to give Tor specifically to each content type, because I think all content types have the same route. So there's been we did some customization to that, but yeah, it's all YAML files. So yeah, you can it's writing code, deploys with the code. So if you make helpful information part of your acceptance criteria, it just gets pasted in and committed and deployed all in the same continuous integration and automation that we're already so good at. Actually, if anybody liked the little characters, I just got these, so I'm super excited about them. But if anybody likes these little characters, our creative director is an illustrator, and he drew a whole bunch of these. I've got stickers. They're very cute. One of them has a cape and is flying. That one's probably my favorite one. I've got it on my laptop here. But all right, well, I'll stop the recording and say thanks. So thank you, everybody.